Let's be honest. Men didn't stop dating because they hate women. We stopped because the math stopped making sense. I look around, and I see good men, hard-working men, men who built their lives from nothing, sitting alone, not for weeks, not for months, for years. And here's what nobody wants to admit. It's not loneliness that keeps them away. It's logic. At some point, the cost of modern love got too high, too risky, too empty. You give everything you have, your time, your money, and your energy, and still end up being told it's the bare minimum. So men started walking away, not in anger, but in silence, not because we stopped believing in love, but because we finally understood what it was costing us. I remember sitting in a bar a few months ago. Friday night, music low, TV screens glowing with football highlights. Around me, a handful of men in their 40s and 50s, each with a quiet look of peace, not joy, not sadness, just peace. One of them, Mark, divorced twice, raised 2 kids, now lives with a golden retriever in a small house outside Dallas. He took a sip of his beer and said, "I'd rather walk my dog than explain myself again to someone who doesn't listen." We all nodded, because every man at that table understood exactly what he meant. There was a time when we were told that love was worth any price, that a man's role was to prove, to provide, to persist. But that belief came from a different world, a world where effort was seen, not mocked, where loyalty meant something. That world doesn't exist anymore. Now every date feels like a job interview you didn't apply for. The questions are the same, only disguised. How tall are you? What do you do? Where do you live? How much do you make? They're not conversations anymore. They're evaluations. And the irony, the men who actually have those answers, the ones who made it, are the least interested in playing the game. Because when you've worked your entire life to build stability, you start to notice how fragile people's loyalty has become, how temporary attention feels, how one mistake, one quiet moment, one missed text can erase years of effort. I had a younger friend tell me recently, "Dating feels like applying for a CEO position I'm not qualified for." He's 34, makes 6 figures, owns a home. He's funny, decent looking, smart, but still, he feels disqualified before the conversation even begins. And maybe he's right, because today, dating isn't about connection. It's about competition. Who looks better, earns more, travels further, posts louder. Somewhere along the way, we replaced the word love with lifestyle. We turned companionship into a transaction, and when a man stops participating, they call him bitter. When he stops chasing, they call him weak. When he chooses peace over drama, they call him cold. But here's the truth. He's not cold. He's tired. He's tired of proving his worth to people who never intended to value him. Every man I know has a story of giving too much and receiving nothing real in return. A story of showing up, only to be told it wasn't enough. A story of being replaced not because he failed, but because someone else looked newer, shinier, more exciting, and little by little, those stories change a man. He doesn't explode. He just quietly stops showing up. He starts skipping the small talk. He stops texting first. He spends his weekends doing things that actually give him peace, fixing his car, grilling in the backyard, walking through the park with his dog. Simple things, real things. And the crazy part is, he's not miserable. He's free. People say, men are afraid of commitment. No, men are afraid of committing to the wrong person, to someone who'll take everything they have and still call it not enough. You can call that fear if you want. I call it self-respect. Because here's the thing, every man reaches a moment when he realizes that peace is worth more than partnership. That silence is better than being misunderstood. That solitude isn't a curse, it's clarity. And once a man discovers that clarity, he doesn't go back. He can't. Not because he hates love, but because he finally learned how to live without losing himself. There's something strange about watching the dating world from the outside. You start to see patterns you couldn't see when you were inside it. The same conversations, the same demands, the same empty smiles that fade when they realize you're not another fantasy they can post online. I remember this one story from a friend named Alex. He's a software developer, good kid, makes solid money, polite, loyal. He told me about his last date. He picked her up, paid for dinner at a nice restaurant she chose. She spent most of the night taking photos of her food, tagging the restaurant, smiling for the camera. But not once did she look at him. When the check came, he paid. She stood up, said, "This was boring," and left. Didn't even say thank you. The next day, she posted on Instagram, "Another disappointing date. Where are all the good men?" He laughed when he told me. Not out of bitterness, out of disbelief. Because at some point, you realize the problem isn't the date. It's the illusion people are addicted to. It's not about meeting someone real anymore. It's about the performance, the post, the validation. And that's the sickness nobody wants to admit. We've created a marketplace where effort goes unnoticed, where kindness is boring, and loyalty is undervalued. So men adapt. They pull back. They stop playing a rigged game. And when they do, the world calls them broken. But they're not broken. They're just awake. I saw that truth at a wedding a few years ago. A big one. Maybe 100 guests. Open bar. String lights hanging from the ceiling. The bride was beautiful. The groom successful. Everything looked perfect. Until you looked closer. During the vows, his hands trembled. Not with joy, with hesitation. His smile didn't reach his eyes. He looked like a man signing a contract he didn't believe in anymore. And when they danced, I noticed something. She kept adjusting her dress, her hair, her phone for photos. He kept adjusting his posture for her. 6 months later, divorced. He got the debt. She kept the ring and the pictures for Instagram. That was the day I stopped judging men who stay single. Because I saw what it costs to pretend. Men aren't scared of love. They're scared of losing themselves again. You give everything your heart, your time, your purpose, and one day, you wake up realizing you don't even recognize the man in the mirror. That's not fear. That's trauma disguised as wisdom. I used to think being alone was something to fix, like it was a symptom of failure. Now, I see it differently. Solitude is not absence. It's presence. It's space where you finally hear your own thoughts without interruption. There's a kind of quiet that feels heavy at first, but if you stay in it long enough, it becomes peace. Peace is not loud. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't ask for permission. And that's what scares people, not the loneliness, but the realization that peace feels better than love ever did. When you live alone long enough, you start to notice the difference between needing someone and wanting someone. Needing someone comes from fear. Wanting someone comes from strength. And most people are still operating from fear. That's why they chase noise. Why they can't sit in silence. Why they call you cold for choosing peace. I get it now. They don't understand that a man who's been broken and rebuilt himself doesn't chase chaos anymore. He doesn't need to prove he's worthy of attention. He doesn't beg for a place in someone's story. He writes his own. You can call it pride. You can call it ego. I call it self-respect. There's this narrative that men are emotionally unavailable, that we don't want connection, that we're afraid to open up. But the truth is, we did open up to the wrong people. Too many times. And each time, a piece of us closed for protection, not out of spite. So now, when people ask why so many men stay single, I tell them the truth. It's not because we gave up on love. It's because we gave up on losing ourselves. And that's something you can't unlearn. Because once a man knows what peace feels like, once he's built a life where no one drains him, where no one manipulates him with guilt, where every decision is his, he won't trade that for company. Not anymore. So yes, maybe men are staying single for years, maybe longer. But from what I've seen, they're not suffering. They're healing. They're rebuilding. They're living lives that finally belong to them. And that's not something you can buy. flirt, or guilt your way into. That's earned. That's freedom. There's a kind of silence that doesn't feel empty. It feels earned. That's the silence most men are living in now. Not the silence of loneliness, the silence of clarity. It's a strange thing, rebuilding your life after you've been emptied out. At first, you try to fill the space with noise, music, work, distractions, anything that makes the quiet less heavy. But then, one morning, you stop fighting it. You let the quiet stay. You realize it isn't punishing you. It's protecting you. I started to notice the little things again. The way the coffee smells at 6 a.m., the way the light falls across the kitchen floor, the sound of my dog's paws against the hardwood when I come home. Those things used to disappear in the chaos. Now, they're what I look forward to. That's the trade no one talks about. When you stop chasing people who drain you, you start noticing the world again. You start noticing yourself. I used to think peace was boring. Now, I think it's the most valuable thing I own. My friend Greg, 52, divorced twice, said something to me once that stuck. He said, "Peace doesn't need to impress anyone. It just needs to exist." He lives alone now, in a small house outside Phoenix, cooks for himself, takes long walks every evening, and he's happier than he's ever been. Not because life is perfect, because it's simple. That's what solitude gives you. Simplicity, control, freedom. It's not that men hate love. We just stopped believing that love has to come with chaos. If peace costs solitude, we'll pay it. Because peace, once earned, feels better than love ever did. Some people call that sad. I call it survival. We adapted. We evolved. We turned loneliness into a home, not a prison. And once you've built that home, you don't let anyone walk in just because they knocked. They have to bring peace with them, or they don't come in at all. That's not arrogance. That's wisdom. Hard-earned. Paid for in heartbreak and silence. When I look back now, I don't regret the mistakes. I regret the moments I kept giving chances to people who showed me exactly who they were. I regret staying when my soul was already gone. But I also understand why I did it. Because men are raised to fix things. Even people. Even relationships that were never ours to repair. And that's what finally breaks us, not rejection, not heartbreak, but realizing we can't fix what was never broken in the first place. So we stop. We walk away. We learn to be okay with unfinished stories, with unanswered messages, with doors that close quietly. And that's where peace begins, not when everything is perfect, but when you no longer chase what disturbs your soul. That's the real freedom. Now, I come home to a quiet house. I cook dinner for one. I pour a glass of whiskey. I turn on some old blues music and sit by the window. The world outside keeps moving, chasing, shouting, scrolling. But in here it's still. I pay my mortgage. I fix what breaks. I take care of myself. And that's enough. For the first time, that's actually enough. People ask me sometimes, "Don't you get lonely?" And I tell them the truth. Loneliness isn't the absence of people. It's the absence of peace. When I was surrounded by noise, I felt lonelier than I ever do now. Because noise isn't connection. It's distraction. And when you remove the distractions, you find what's real. Your thoughts, your values, yourself. So yes, maybe I'm single. Maybe I'll stay that way. But that's not something to pity. That's something I chose. Because the man I am today doesn't beg for love that costs him his soul. He doesn't confuse validation with affection. He doesn't trade peace for partnership. If love ever finds me again, it will have to walk through peace first. It will have to match my calm, not compete with it. It will have to see me, not the version that serves, not the one that fixes, but the one that finally learned how to stand still. And if it never comes, that's okay too. Because I didn't lose love. I found clarity. So, when people say men today are cold, I smile. Because we're not cold. We're clear. We're clear about what matters. Clear about what drains us. clear about what's worth our time and what's not. We've stopped chasing storms and started protecting silence. We've stopped proving our worth and started living it. That's not bitterness. That's peace. And peace, my friend, is undefeated.